Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Kevin McGovern, and we are ready for episode 110, the Prove It Live podcast. Good show for you today. We're going to talk to you about baseball coaching through movement, and that's really going to combine what a coach and a movement specialist can do together to improve the athlete, baseball player, or whatever. So, without further ado, I want to introduce you to my very handsome podcast host who is in his United States Patriots garb. I think that was 47, nothing over the weekend, but neither here nor there. Mr. Mike Frary. Michael, take
Thank
us
you,
away.
Kevin. Thanks for the introduction. And yep, I am rocking a Patriots shirt, but you know what? I'm a real fan. You know, I'm not just
right. Yeah, that's
this. You know how many people out there that like rode the 20-year dynasty or however long it was, and now they're just completely off the bandwagon. Like
off the bandwagon. Yeah, off the
it's
reservation.
unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, how many dynasties who lose like, you know, a once in a generation quarterback like that just keep rolling. I mean, it takes some time, people. You gotta be patient here. Got to be patient. You know, and they don't always get it right when they pick that next guy. It's not always right, and I think that's the case of the Patriots. I'm not a Mac Jones guy, but you know, it is what it is.
I don't think it's just the quarterback. It's
not just him, but he's
everyone you've picked has not been very good.
But he's except for defensive. Christian Gonzalez is. I mean, he's hurt now, but you know that was a hell of a pick. But anyway, I digress. So I'm excited about today's episode, as I am wont to do. But particularly excited because we're going to talk a little bit about what you and I have been doing in a small, some one-offs over the last couple of years, and how we can really help athletes improve. I mean, it's no question that the players that we've worked with together have seen like just tremendous results, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like we talked in previous shows, you can't build an athlete without first starting with their basic functional movement. We both believe that is missing in today's game, and that's why the performance is and the injuries are
Yep. Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir. Yep. And it's hard out there too, because I mean, you know, especially I may see this more than you do, but you know, as players get older and they start getting pulled in more directions, you know, like now they have a high school coach that they, you know, respect or, you know, believe, you know, they put a lot of stock in those types of guys. Right. And so, you know, you now have another opinion coming in. And for the most part over the years, you know, guys that have been working with me for years and years. So, you know, they're typically, they stay on my boat, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you know, there is influence. And look, before we get into this, you know, I think there's lots of reasons why what we're about to talk about happens. And that's one of them. It's just influence. And, you know, kids, we understand that kids want to play, you know, and if that means agreeing to what a coach wants you to do, so you get out in the field, I get the logic of it. I don't agree with it, but I get the logic of it.
Yeah. And, you know, I've seen it where, again, we work all summer working on pitching mechanics, and all of a sudden fall ball comes and there's a change. And unfortunately there's an injury or a loss of performance. And yeah, it's certainly an issue. And it's, you know, I feel bad for the kid, right? Because they're kind of caught in the middle, right? Trying to just, at the end of the day, just appease people.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, and of course, as always, you know, you can't you know, let the parents off the hook here either, because a lot of them they either don't understand the, you know, the level of expertise someone might have, and what's the right way, what's the wrong way, and they want to see their kid play. So, you know, they could be in the ear saying, hey, we better do what your high school coach is telling you if you want to play. And, you know, so yeah, they're pulled in all sorts of directions. And I think that's why what we're doing, what we will be doing, is so important, because it's not just one person anymore. Now it's two people, and two people in their own areas of expertise. And I think that's going to carry a lot of weight. Number one. Number two, I think that if you can positively influence a kid, what I mean by that is like show them actual results. And that's what I love about today's technology. I know some people, especially some of the old timers, are like not big into the exit velocity and all that stuff. I get it, but it's great as a development tool because you can visually see marked results. So, before it was, hey man, your swing looks a lot better. You might not see it or feel it, but it does, trust me. And they can't see it. A lot of times they think you're just blowing smoke to make them feel better. But now they can see it. And that's a big deal. So to kick this off, Kevin, so why does my child need both and I don't just look at as a physical therapist, I look at as like a movement expert. Why do they need that and a baseball instructor?
It's a great question, Mike. And the answer is very simple. In 30 years of practice, I've never seen a human being move kinesiologically correct. So that's just basic movement, getting out of a chair, walking, reaching for something above your head, washing your hair. So you can't build high level athletic activity on a movement base that is incorrect. Right.
So you're saying that I could tell someone to move in a certain way with a swing, but if they're not set up properly, posture wise or whatever, they're not going to, I could tell them that till they're blue in their face and they're just not going to be able to do it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Not only will they not be able to duplicate it, but even if they sort of could duplicate it, what they're getting out of it is only probably 10%, right? It's kind of like when I tell patients, it's like, look, we're building a building and no building in the world I have ever seen starts at the penthouse. We like the penthouse. It's nice up there. We've got, surround sound and big screen TV and a nice mini bar. It has to start with the boring stuff, which is the parking garage, which is the basement. And if you don't have a good base of movement, of support, your building, your human being is going to come crashing down. Hopefully that's just performance, but most often that's injury is linked to that.
It's funny you say that because I like to use it's a similar analogy, but it's like a cake, right? Mm-hmm. And so you don't just build a cake with frosting. And why that's relevant is like kids love frosting. They like the frosting. That's all they care about is the frosting.
Absolutely.
But that's not what makes the cake.
Correct.
Right. And they have to know and learn about what actually makes the cake. And yeah, the frosting is like, enjoy when you get to that level, right? Yep. It's like getting to the point where you can eat the frosting.
And look, I understand some of what I do is boring for kids. I get it. But what's not boring is the literally almost instantaneous measurable, and we've seen it. We've measured it on the radar gun. We've measured it with Rapsodo. Instant results of exit velocity, pitch velocity, 40 time. I can give countless numbers of how people have improved by almost instantly by improving the quality and the synergistic relationship of their basic human movement.
Yeah. And that's so important. So you and I have had clients who we've worked with together. Mm-hmm. Either their hitting instructor or their baseball coach, or typically both. And that will go to you. And a lot of times it's been because they've had some issue that they were dealing with, but inevitably they always end up working with you on just posture and understanding that base, that foundation that you need before any athletic movement in order to perform it well. And of those players, I mean, really all of them have had like market success, and not to say they haven't had players with success without it. Of course we do. But I mean, at the end of the day, I could say it's invaluable. What went into the players that worked with both you and I together. And one of them that I can think of off the top of my head is a high school player, is a junior now. Knowing Kevin, knowing you for as long as I have, I've learned a lot from you. And so I know a lot of the postural stuff to teach, but some of them just, they don't get it, or, and maybe it's a cue from you, whatever it is, but they go and see you, they get that movement down, they come back and boom, without me making any other additional mechanical changes, there's a 10%, 11%, 12%, sometimes 14, 15% increase in an exit velocity like that. like overnight. And you can't, I'm sorry, like you can't put a value on that.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could say what I'm doing is magic, but it's not, right? It's just basic functional science. The body's an amazing tool. It will always do what you tell it to do good thing. It will always do what you tell it to do bad thing.
Right.
Do you think like Steph Curry and LeBron James move correctly? No, they don't move correctly. If I tested them, I guarantee I will find fault in their movement. But what they have is unbelievable compensatory movements to circumvent their bad movements. Kids today, young athletes, don't have any of that at all. Like they don't, their basic movements are so far off. Even if they had LeBron James's compensatory movements, they would still fail movement tests, right?
Yeah.
So when you start to put good movements into the greatest machine ever built, which is the human body, it's the greatest machine ever built, you're going to see exponential results. Now, when you do these other fly-by-night programs, these velocity programs, these HLP hitting programs that you see, what I see are violations of my 3 key movements that every athlete, any sport on the planet must have. Number 1, moving from top to bottom, the ability to scapular depress. Okay. When you lift your shoulders, the first movement is your shoulders depressed down. So when I see the M, the inverted W, the batting stance for the upper traps or earrings, anything being taught in that video is wrong. I don't care how good the instruction is. Your player is not in the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The second is the squat, right? The key movement of hip hinging, keeping lordotic posture as you move. Your glute is essential. And the third is walking. And when I say walking, I mean rotation. If you're facing south and I say, the chow line is west, your body is going to turn at the belly button and everything else is going to follow, meaning it's going to move proximal from our core to distal. Those 3 movement principles, my pillars of movement, I can't tell you how many times I see them violated in stuff I see on social media. Like just complete. Now, I'm not saying the program could be unbelievable, right? You do this and you could be God. You could walk on water, but you can't walk on water if you don't have good balance. All right. So if you're not addressing the basics of functional movement, anything you do, you're not going to succeed at.
Well said. And I can tell you that there may be people listening to this, watching this and saying, well, maybe, but my kid must be doing it right. Cause he's hitting 600 for his high school team. He's leading the team in home runs or whatever. And my answer to that is that he's probably still not. And why it's important, right? So, and this is for players. Like when we deal in the players that have aspirations to play college beyond even, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that whatever they're doing now with athleticism, and again, they may have good fast twitch, whatever, they might be able to swing the bat pretty quickly with their arms. They're strong against, 72 mile an hour fastballs to 78 mile an hour fastballs. They're eventually going to need this to succeed, eventually going to need it. And because that's one of the things I run into a lot, Kevin, is, well, he's tearing it up. He's killing. He's best hitter on his team, best hitter in his, his league, whatever. But in getting those people to understand that you still need this, because if you want to maximize your potential and play at the absolute highest level that you can, you need to be able to move properly. And especially in a sport like baseball, where everything's reactionary, right? You're on offense and you don't have the ball. You got to not only know how to move, but then you got to build it into muscle memory.
1,000%.
Takes a while.
And,
yeah.
Everybody has a healthy and unhealthy brain side. And man, sometimes like you could show parents, you could prove it to them live, but they have this fixed idea that, like you just said, oh, my little Johnny, he is hitting, 900 in the neighborhood wiffle ball league. Great. Okay. But that's going to level out, right? We see it all the time. We see the the 13-year-old kid or the 12-year-old kid who's 5'9". Yeah,
Right.
he hit 12 home runs in Little League. And when he comes to 13, reaches puberty, then it becomes exponentially worse because we've gotten taller or we've whatever.
The field got bigger.
Field got bigger, and then the kid can't do a thing,
Yeah.
And it's just I can't stress how functional correct movement is so vital in keeping an athlete healthy and performing. And in my opinion, it is the number one reason people decrease in performance, and more importantly, why the injury rate is through the roof in every single sport.
Mhm.
I mean, like I've talked on previous shows, you're an NFL running back and you run, 3 yards, 9 feet, and you're out with a hamstring pull. You do not, I guarantee that person does not have a proper squat somewhere along the line, because there's no way you should injure your hamstring running 9 feet.
No, absolutely not. And having, I think another important part of what you do and what you bring to a baseball athlete, in addition to, the mechanical instruction, is not just those movements, but moving the sequence of those movements, which is obviously just as important, and having them work in conjunction with one another. Everything that we do in sport, and I keep it to baseball, is everything's a sprint in baseball. It's a short, explosive movement, right? A pitch is a mini sprint. A swing is a mini sprint. It's 0 to fast as you can right away. And to do that in the proper sequence takes time. That's why, Kevin, we've had players, right, who they've worked with us, okay, and while they're in our presence, they can do it, right? And so when I say these results can happen overnight, they do when I'm there, all right? But then if that's not done to the point of muscle memory, which takes a long time, okay, depending on the individual, but it could take 1,000 reps plus, they're going to go back. They're going to revert back to that poor movement because it's just in their cellular memory, right? And
yeah, so some of what I have, my little anecdote or reasoning behind is that the body in its basic being always thinks it's going to die, meaning it's always in conservation mode, right? So the body is always thinks it's not going to have enough water, it's not going to have enough food, so it's always trying to store energy. It can't stop the lungs from breathing and the heart from beating to conserve energy, right? The only place the body can take stored energy from is the musculoskeletal system. Because when I stand up from a chair, instead of 150 muscles helping me, yeah, I can get up with a chair with only 20. So the body thinks now that it has saved, the whole, term, if you don't use it, you lose it, 1,000%.
Right.
And that's what happens, is that we have to train the body that all the proper muscles are on all the time doing whatever activity you're having it do. And that takes, like you said, a lot of reps. The days of doing reps 10 and 15 times, you are wasting everyone's time. When I have someone doing scapular depression, it will be, as you know, 200 to 250 times a day. Now, that's not just in one sitting, that's throughout the day.
Right.
If you're not doing something in those reps, you are never going to make the body change into something that's subconscious, that it's just doing it because you just have to do a minimum of 1,000, maybe 3,000 reps. I don't know. Some people have done studies on, what it takes to change a habit. To me, it's like brushing your teeth, right? We have been so programmed to brush our teeth twice a day, every day, because we only get one set. You only get one spine. So anything that you do, the exercises that I give, there is a follow-up that's going to be, 15 to 20 minutes long that you have to do every single day of your existence to stay healthy.
That's key. And I'll add to that, is not only the reps important, but practice makes permanent, right? So the kind of reps, the quality of reps that you're doing mean everything. And I'll give you an example. because, you might be listening or watching this and saying, well, my son, or I'm a player, and, I have a strength coach and I have my hitting coach. Right. But if they don't really understand movement, you could be wasting your time there. What good is it? Even if, let's say, you come and work with me and I'm teaching you how to hit and how to move in the proper sequence. And then you go to a strength guy and you're doing med ball throws and you're using the wrong sequence. And so you're building a completely wrong muscle memory. You could be undoing the proper one. You could be reinforcing the bad one. It could be a combination of both, but having two people, right, who understand this together, helping you reach your goals is massively important for that reason alone. And I've seen it. I've seen it. And look, it's hard. It's hard to get proper movement down, whatever movement it is. You look at a baseball swing and, I could work with a player, see him twice a week for 4 months, 3 months, 4 months. And then I don't see that player for, a month and a half. They come in. There's going to be lots of things we got to correct. We got to get back to where we were the last time I saw that person, right? Because it does take a long time. I don't know what the exact reps is, but I know just in my experience that, I have a kid who's, say, 13, 14 years old. It's going to take at least a year of working consistently to really get that down to the point where you just reactively move that way. You see a fastball and you reactively move, and you're moving the way you want to move. It's similar for.
Yeah. I mean, I look
right?
at, yeah, I mean, like some of the pitching things that I do really, in my Velocity RX program, that's online, by the way. 3/4 of it is just retraining basic human movement. Like,
Right.
how can you throw a ball when you can't do a balanced one-legged squat? How many kids can actually do that? And that's why all these velo programs have gotten so popular, because 99% of them do not make the body work correctly. It
Right.
makes it cheat. And people are like, oh, this is, I don't want to say the easy way out, but you're not going to see people do a one-legged squat to come down, the drop and drive to come down the mound like Nolan Ryan. These kids can't do that. There's no way. I've never seen a kid do that, but I've never seen that in any of these velo programs that I've seen. It's always accentuating the bad, drift forward, right? Shrug, all the bad habits, because that's what the body goes to normally. And they're just accentuating that bad habits, and boom, they get hurt.
And a lot of kids too, and we did this when we were kids. You look at a big league player and you try to emulate them. But if you don't really know what you should be looking at, right? I mean, you could, a perfect example. I mean, I know when I was a kid, and I think you talked about this too, Kevin, we knew all the stances. And when I was young, I thought the stance somehow had something to do with how you hit. I didn't know. Why would you know? How would you know? And so you go off. I'm in a slump, so maybe I'm gonna stand like Don Mattingly now, or I'm gonna stand like Jim Rice, or whatever it might be, and that's gonna help me break out. And sometimes it would, because a lot of times slumps are up here, right? But It had nothing to do with your, because that's not helping you with your body movement. But you might think it does, and so. Having a real full understanding of what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to be training your body is invaluable in terms of, ultimately getting to that goal that you want to get to. I mean, that's, and I can say this too. So you take that to pitching, and a lot of time when you have young kids, they don't emulate a pitcher with their lower half. They emulate it here. Right. So you see the inverted W, you see the reaching back like this, and that's now you're getting into a situation where they're trying to improve themselves and they're actually going in the opposite direction, where they're potentially getting themselves hurt.
And I've done plenty of drills where I can prove live that correcting your lower body will fix any arm path issue. Because if your lower body moves correctly, you're not having to catch up or make up for stuff with your arm. It's just there in sequence. And I can prove, so basically, you want better shoulder movement, master the squat. Simple as that. And your shoulder will move exponentially better when your lower body moves better. That's science. That's not Kevin McGovern science. That's just basic kinesiology. It just blows my mind how many people are working at being better at any athletic movement and not, you'll never see a video where a player's like, yeah, man, I'm really working on my squat technique today to help me be a better hitter. You
Right.
won't see it. And, like we can get film, like someone, if you don't believe me, go back and look when Alex Rodriguez came back from his hip injury that next season. I think he batted just around 200, and then the Yankees eventually had to eat the last year of his contract. I tried to get every connection I could to get to someone to listen. If you looked at A-Rod when he loaded, his back foot wobbled. Go get any YouTube video from that year because he didn't have a problem with pitch recognition. He was on it, but what was problem was he was late every single pitch, and then he was overcompensating, and we out ahead of all the breaking stuff because the body needs a stable pillar to rotate around. And when that foot wobbled because he didn't have glute control, groin control, back extensors to do a proper one-legged squat, which is essentially the load in hitting, boom. And that you can get any YouTube video. And then I want you to go and compare it to golfer Bubba Watson and watch his back leg as he winds himself in this unbelievable contortion to hit a golf ball 350 yards. And you will see that back foot not move a millimeter. And that's the difference. No one picked that up. No one that I've ever heard of. And the Yankees had to write A-Rod a check for $25 or $27 million. They released him.
Absolutely. I see it too.
And 1,000% could have been corrected, and two, could have easily and could have saved his career another year.
Look, I watch MLB Network. I'm sure you do it time to time too. And they talk about hitting on there sometimes and talk about influence, right? I mean, who's not going to listen to a bunch of guys who played in the big leagues? And they'll sit there and just talk about hands and hands and hands. And by the way, every time they're showing this thing, they're mimicking it. Of course, they're turning their hips first and then throwing their hands, but they're not talking. Hands
are last all the time.
Hands are last all the time, right? And so, you might get the wrong impression, And so I guess what I'm saying is like this stuff is hard. It's very, baseball is super mechanical, especially something like a swing or pitch. And there is that right way to, and I'm not saying right in terms of opinions, I'm saying right as Kevin's talking about it, like there's a proper way to move. Hitting, what Kevin was talking about, that back foot is if your back knee doesn't stay inside your back foot and you're losing a midline, right? Your spine's drifting and coming way too far over one side or the other. Like there's no way you can rotate. It's like taking a merry-go-round and putting it off kilter so that, the pole's over one side. That's not going to rotate in a circle. Right. It's going to have some, weird sort of angular shape to it. So, that's something as small as that, but it's key. It's absolutely key, especially at that level. Right. I mean, you're facing guys that even when you're doing it perfectly, it's hard to hit. You have a flaw like that you don't even know you're doing. You're cooked. You're cooked.
1,050%.
And like at the end of the day, we all want to perform well. Right. And the best way to perform well, as Kevin knows, is to stay healthy. Because if you're not healthy, you're not on the field, you can't perform well. No matter what you're capable of doing, you can't perform well.
And if you're doing any sort of training program in any sport, baseball, softball, you have to be working. There has to be a corrective movement component to it. If not, you're never going to get your money's worth. You're probably not going to get the best result. You may have been up injured. And it's basically you have to start with your parking garage. You have to start with your foundation of movement. That's what, when you train with Mike and I, is the difference. Now, of course, you can train with us live or in person. I mean, live and in person or online, right? We have online programs. So, to get in touch with us, you can email the show at info@proveitlive.com. Please like our YouTube channel and visit our website at proveitlive.com. We are here to help, and we'll be seeing a lot more. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.